Terrific. Thank you so much, Christy. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I just want to start off with a little bit of background about Language Tree Online. We have been around for a long time, since 2003, and we've always been focused on language acquisition. We've spent the last 5 years solely focused on English language development, specifically for our secondary students, our middle high school students, primarily because we want to help support them as they have the shortest ramp to graduation. The head of our curriculum is David Noyes, and a little bit about David. He has his national boards in English language development, and he's the EL coach for Long Beach Unified School District. He's worked with English learners for over 28 years. So let's go ahead and get started. What I wanted to do today is just kind of give you a little bit of an overview of our curriculum and kind of at a high level what the program entails. And then towards the end of the presentation, we'll talk specifically about the summer program offerings. And then time permitting, I'll take you and I want to show you a little bit of the content firsthand. So at a high level, our curriculum kind of falls into two areas. We have our Eld Level One and our Eld Level Two. But I wanted to explain what that means. So our Level One is really geared towards our newcomer English learners, our beginning English learners, up to about 24 months in country. And so this curriculum is highly scaffolded for our beginning English learners. And we also have a module within Eld Level One that is specifically for our newcomers. It's called American School Culture, and the intent is to help them with acculturation, their social and emotional needs, and to help gain that functional vocabulary. But the layout and structure is similar in both levels, in the sense that we have the standards-based assessments and the standards-based lessons. So going over to our Eld Level Two, this is really intended for our intermediate English learners and our long-term English learners. So the rigor goes up substantially in the Level Two, and we get into that cross-curricular content integration with the math, social sciences, English language arts content curriculum, with, excuse me, the language being the driver and the content being the passenger. So, but just to let you know, our curriculum was written as a continuum. So it's intended for students to start and progress and continue on through Level Two, where they get to the point of bridging and redesignation. So let's talk a little bit about the standards-based assessments. So we have entry and exit assessments. The name explains it all. But what we did is we took kind of three areas and we created three assessment areas. So we have the, I'm going to call them buckets, but we have the foundational literacy skills, and we have collaborative listening and speaking, and language function and construction. So we use backwards planning when developing this. So we put one standard per assessment question, but we have more than one question with that standard in it. So the reason that we did that is once students complete all three of the assessment areas, we want teachers to be able to go in and actually look at the data and be able to really pinpoint the skill gap that each and every student has. So in each one of these buckets, we have 25 questions. So all in, it's a very thorough assessment of 75 questions. Okay, so then the next piece is those standards-based, the entry assessment then corresponds with the standards-based lessons. And we have a real uniform teaching style from the perspective that we have the virtual professor providing the lesson input that's video-based, so students can watch it multiple times if they need to. And it certainly can be launched full class. So the teacher can start and stop the video, expand upon the lesson input. And then from there, there's the interactive activities that really cover the comprehension, or excuse me, cover, what the input provided, and now they're answering questions related to that. And then the last component for every online lesson, we have downloadable activities, and these are proven classroom activities that can be used during small group instruction, again, to reinforce the skills and language functions in each and every online lesson. So I know it's tiny type here, but over to the right, you can see what each lesson covers in each one of the bucket areas. So foundational has 9, collaborative listening and speaking, as you can see, has 12, and language function and construction has 7. So a little bit about our American school culture. Again, this is a part of our ELD Level One, and it's a module in of itself. And you can kind of think of it separate from the standards-based assessment and the standards-based lessons, because again, this whole module is really geared towards helping the newcomer students feel comfortable in their new school environment, in their new country, in their new culture. And so what we did with this is we broke it into 6 chapters. And the video input for school culture, they can select either English or Spanish. Then there's the interactive piece. And because it's geared towards newcomers, the question types are very simple and straightforward, yes, no type questions. And then we have another section in each chapter called Vocabulary Builder. And what that is it's scaffolded vocabulary. And there's also video input and interactive exercises in the vocabulary builder section as well. And then lastly, for each online chapter, there's the downloadable content. And so just to kind of point out for our newcomers or life students, oftentimes it's good just to start with the downloadable content and give those students some scaffolding, some functional vocabulary before even starting in the program. So let's talk a little bit about the summer instructional blueprint, because as we know, the summer school, typically ranges between 4 and 8 weeks. So it's a condensed time frame. We have 2 options. We have either the ELD Level 1 option. Again, that's for our newcomers and our beginning English learners. And then we have the Level 2, which is for our intermediate and our long-term English learners. As a part of the program, we do provide an hour professional development, and we have downloadable planning templates. And we also have summer planning templates. This is just an example so that you can see what it looks like. This is based on a summer program that runs from 9 to noon, and it runs 5 days a week. So let's talk about how we would suggest implementing the summer program. So when we talk about the ELD Level 1, which we're focused on today for the sake of this webinar for our newcomers and our beginning English learners, there's kind of 2 ways you could do it. If you had a group of summer students that are primarily newcomers, then our suggestion would be you would want to, for that 4 to 6 week of curriculum, you would want to focus on the American school culture, help them get comfortable in the new school environment, prepare for the fall, gain that functional vocabulary, and then focus on the foundational literacy skills. So that would be at a high level, the emphasis for a summer program for newcomers. If they're a bit beyond newcomers, but they're beginning English learners, then we would suggest having all the students take that assessment at the beginning, those 3 kind of bucket areas with the 25 questions in each area. And then once you look at the data, there's always trends. So it may be that you find typically there'll be areas where everybody kind of struggles. So in that case, you would just select a few lessons from each one of those bucket areas where the vast majority of the skill gaps resides, and you would just focus on those lessons for the summer program. Because the curriculum is really a whole year program, but we're talking about a condensed period of time. So you'll just focus on those, those keystone lessons where most of your students have challenges. The other option is you could just focus in one functional area. For example, you may just focus the 4 weeks in the foundational literacy skills and really get those skills honed in. And this just talks a bit about the level 2 for the summer, but for the sake of this webinar, I know we're just focused on Eld Level One, so I'm not going to really get into that because I want to have time to be able to go in and show you a bit of the program. So let me switch gears. And while I'm switching gears, please feel free to put any questions you may have in the chat because I know I kind of whipped through that presentation pretty quickly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. I have teacher demo credentials. Whoops. So I just kind of want to show you what it would look like. So in the case of the first scenario, we talked about American school culture. And again, this would be if you had primarily all newcomer students in your summer program. You can focus a lot just on the American school culture module. So I'm going to click on that so that you can see it. And there's the 6 chapters and what they cover. It's all around the context of school in America, but I want to go ahead and just show you a little bit of one so you can see what it looks like.
A fun way to learn about a culture is to participate in their traditions. Here are a few key holidays that Americans celebrate. But remember, school is closed on some, but not all. January 1st is New Year's Day. The night before is called New Year's Eve, and that's when people attend parties and celebrations that last throughout midnight. On New Year's Day, there's a famous college football game known as the Rose Bowl. Friends and families often get together to watch the historic Rose Parade that happens before the game and the Rose Bowl game on TV. New Year's Day is also a time of creating New Year's resolutions, which are promises to yourself to improve in a particular area, such as exercising more or being nicer to your sister. Every third Monday in January is a school holiday recognizing Martin Luther King Jr. He was a leader in the African American civil rights movement. Valentine's Day, on February 14th, is not an official day off from school, but it is a fun celebration of love and romance. People exchange greeting cards, flowers, candy, and gifts with those they care about.
So I'm just going to stop it there. So I think you get the gist for this chapter. We're going from month to month and covering the holidays and traditions that are celebrated. And this is also a great time to really, build that community with your English learners and find out about some of the holidays and traditions they may have celebrated in their home country. So from there, I didn't go through the whole video, but I just wanted to kind of give you a feel what the interactive questions would be like after the video input. So again, because this is for newcomers, you can see the question types are pretty straightforward.
Select the correct image for each vocabulary word. New Year's resolution.
So they would go through this. And there's a lot of activities. And then the other piece for each chapter is the vocabulary builder. And so again, that's just scaffolded vocabulary. So as we talked about the holidays and traditions that happen throughout the month of the year, then it would make sense that we would talk about the months of the year.
Let's review the months of the year. January, February, March.
And then again, they would go through the activities afterwards. One thing that we try to do is make the interactive exercises different for each lesson, so it's interesting for students.
Look at the calendar below. Put the months of the year in the correct order by selecting each month and dropping it into the calendar.
So you can see this is a demo account. I've been in here a lot, but students can drag and drop and put it in the appropriate order and continue through the activities. So let me go back to home and show you a couple more things. So that we were just talking about, summer program that had primarily newcomers, but let's talk about if your students are, beginning English learners, perhaps not newcomers, you would start with the entry assessment. Click on that. And like I showed in the presentation, each one of these bucket areas has approximately 25 questions. So they would start with foundational literacy skills, 25, collaborative listening and speaking, 25, and language function and construction, 25. And once they complete that, then you can go in with your teacher login and you can select ELD1 entry assessment, grades, and you will see all your students fall here, and you can see how they did in each one of these assessment areas: foundational literacy skills, collaborative listening and speaking, language function and construction. Let's just look at our language student demo 2 here. That if you look at their score, right next to it, you can see the little magnifying glass. I can click on that and it's going to give me the details of how long the student was in the program, how they did in the assessment, questions they got right and wrong. And then you can scroll down and actually see where that student fell out. So let me go back to home here. So then the lesson modules for the summer program, what you would want to do, like I mentioned, there's a couple options. You may just want to have this summer focus be on foundational literacy skills. And foundational literacy skills, there are 9 lessons, and you can see what they cover. So again, one of the things to point out is that since this is developed for our secondary students, there is no cute cartoon characters or sing songs or anything like that that you would see in foundational skills when, our students, our ELA students are learning this in kinder, first, second grade. But when you're an English learner and you're getting these foundational skills and you're in 8th, 11th grade or something, we wanted to be very cognizant of our audience. So it's very relevant, the context for older students. So those are the 9 lessons. Let me go back. The other thing is, based on the data, you may want to focus in on just a couple of lessons for the summer program in each one of these bucket areas. So for example, collaborative listening and speaking, there are some keystone lessons, which are longer and more challenging lessons. And so, you may want to, or you may see from the data results that a lot of your students are struggling in reading and viewing closely. So that would be a lesson, perhaps evaluating language choices. So just focusing in on a couple. So there are 12 lessons in our collaborative listening and speaking. And then let me go back. And then language function and construction, I will show you there's 9 lessons. And why don't we just go ahead and look at one of the standards-based lessons so you can kind of see how it works. I'm going to select the lesson on pronouns and connecting words. Let me start from the beginning.
In this lesson, we will learn about personal pronouns and how they are used in reading and writing. Let's review. A personal pronoun can refer to a person, place, thing, or idea. Here's an example. The boy walks to school. He walks to school. The pronoun he is used to rename the noun boy. Here's another example. The dish is in the sink. It is in the sink. The pronoun it refers to the dish in the sink. One more rule about personal pronouns. They can be masculine, feminine, or neither. When the noun refers to a place, thing, or idea, we use it. The pronoun it is neither masculine nor feminine.
So that's the virtual professor, always providing the lesson input. And then from there, we have a traditional T chart with the noun and the applicable pronoun to the right, and then the activities that the student goes through.
Look at the pictures below. Choose the correct pronoun.
So based on the image, they'll make their selection. And for the online lessons, just to let you know, the system tracks and grades these. So you'll be able to see that and their scores and how they did. And then I'll show you a little bit more of this lesson.
Now let's learn a few more pronouns. They are I, we, and they. The pronoun I is used when you are referring to yourself. For example, I like to read. The next two pronouns are plural as they refer to more than one person. The pronoun we is used when you are referring to yourself and others. For example, we walk to school. The pronoun they is used when you are referring to a group or more than one, but you are not in that group. For example, they are dancing.
So there again, you'll see the T chart with the noun and the applicable pronoun on the right and their instructions.
Look at the pictures below. Choose the correct pronoun.
And the lesson goes on. I wanted to, before we run out of time, have an opportunity to show you the downloadables. So complementing the online lesson are the downloadables. So let me select ELD1 downloadables. So it's those same three buckets that I keep talking about. So for every online lesson, there's downloadables that complement the online lesson. So I'm going to select language, function, and construction and the pronoun lesson again, because we just looked at a little bit of that online lesson. So you can see how they complement each other. So let me select that. Now the downloadables, they range from about 20 to 30 pages per lesson. And again, these are the formula or the model used is input model check. And we put everything, the teaching routine, everything here for teachers and all the picture cards and what they'll need, to print and use. So, and then you can see the different tasks. Task 1, how to use the cards, the writing and speaking pieces. So let me just kind of show you. So here's the cards. Students have, keep scrolling here. So students will have, like, I'll just give you an example in the class, these will be cut out. Everybody has their pronoun cards. You can hold up the picture card and the computer is on the table, hold up the applicable pronoun. It is on the table. The librarian checks out the books. He checks out the books. You can see, so the downloadables are highly scaffolded. And it starts out and then it'll progressively get more challenging. I'll just keep scrolling here. So you can see here, for example, we have a picture and part of the sentence, and they're going to write in the applicable pronoun based on the image. And then it gets to where they have a word bank and they have their images on the right, and now they're going to use one of the pronouns in the word bank to create a sentence. So the intent of the downloadables is to help teachers, have the opportunity to make their own formative assessment on how students are progressing. So I know we've kind of gone through a lot in a short amount of time, but I know we've just got a few minutes left. So I just want to stop here and open it up for any questions.
Hey, Jennifer. One of the questions was, what do I do if my district is primarily long-term English learners?
That's a great question. So if your district primarily has long-term English learners, I'm going to click back over here, then as it relates to the summer program or even the year program, then the emphasis will really be more on the ELD level 2. So what I showed everybody today, the pieces, a few pieces there in the curriculum, was the level 1, but the level 2 is where the rigor goes up quite a bit. And even for the foundational literacy skills, so the layout is the same. I'm just going to show you this. Sometimes it's easier just to show you. The layout is the same for level 2 from the standpoint, there's the entry assessment, with the 3 buckets, 25 questions per bucket. And then we have the lesson modules for level 2. But just to kind of show you for level 2, the foundational literacy skills, for example, are advanced foundational literacy skills. So this gets into some challenging things like identifying diphthongs, R-controlled vowels, the schwa sound, complex spelling patterns. So this, for the summer program, could be just the focus is the advanced foundational literacy skills. And as you'll see, there are 13 lessons instead of 9 in our level 2. And we did things a little bit differently from the perspective that for each online lesson, there are practice assignments. And that's where students are typing right into the program and submitting, and teachers can make their own formative assessment there. So the ELD level 2 was really written to help support, again, our intermediate and our long-term English learners.
Great. And then a lot of the newcomers don't have many language transfer skills. How can they still use the program?
Another great question. So in that case, we would recommend those students, and again, if we're relating this back to a summer program, is starting off in American school culture, but starting with the downloadables. So for each online lesson, you scroll to the bottom of the page. I shouldn't say online lesson, I should say online chapter, because again, the American school culture is not about the standards-based lessons. It's about acculturation and functional vocabulary. So anyways, when you go to the bottom, you can click on downloadables. Only teachers can access this. And you'll see for every online chapter, there's downloadables. And we looked a little bit at the holidays and traditions, so I'll just click on that one. So with our newcomers that don't really have the transferable language skills, it's really great to start here, because then you can just help those students build some scaffolding, get some of that functional vocabulary, and work in a small group activity or full class if they're all of a similar level, and using the downloadable activities.
Okay. And then the next question was, are the students able to go back to the lesson and review if they need to do extra later in the day?
Yeah, absolutely. And we really encourage that. So like, let's say the students are coming in and it's a 3-hour a day summer program. Once they go home, you can either assign it as homework or encourage them to go back in, and they, as long as they have a internet enabled device, they can go back in and go through the lesson that you're focused on as many times as they would like.
That's great. And then it looks like just one more question. When you showed the lessons, it showed some of them as restricted. How do students access those?
Oh, okay. Gosh, really good question. So for the summer program, Again, I'm sorry to click all around, but I think it's nice to just see it firsthand. So normally throughout the school year, if this was used in a school year, after taking the assessment, any students that were a 90% or below in any of the 3 assessment areas, we would recommend that they go through all the lessons in that module. So for example, if they got 90% or below in foundational, collaborative listening and speaking, language function and construction in the assessment, entry assessment, then they would go through all the lessons. So starting with foundational literacy skills, they would start with lesson 1. They would have to get 80% or higher to move on to lesson 2. Otherwise, the system would prompt them to retake lesson 1 until they can achieve 80% or higher. However, for the summer program, we have it to where that is not in place, the restriction, because we know that it's a condensed amount of time, and based on the results of the assessment, you're really going to just focus in on a few key lessons where the vast majority of the students have, gaps. And in that case, you may not be starting with light letter identification. You may start with lesson 6, medial vowel substitution. So there's no restriction on it with that 80% plus rule.
Great. And there's one more question that did pop up.
Sure.
Does it allow them to correct errors for higher scores, or do they just get one try at it?
No, another great question. So with the assessments, the entry and exit assessment, they only have one shot because we're assessing. But for the lesson modules, they can go through it as many times as they want, and they can, go back in and shoot for a higher score. It will show you as the teacher the number of attempts and their latest score, so you can see how they're doing if they want to keep trying to improve. And the system does auto shuffle, so it's not like they can go and like memorize the answers or anything. It's gonna auto shuffle. So each time it'll look a little bit different as they continue to do the same lesson.
Okay, and that looks like the end of the questions.
Great. That's a lot of great questions. And thank you so much, everyone, for your time. And I'm just going to close with this last slide. And just to say that, Studica is our partner in education. And so if you have more questions, you want to see a more thorough demo or get a quote, then please do reach out to Studica and your dedicated representative, and they're more than happy to help you.
Hey, Jennifer, just before we sign off, it will look like one more question popped in. It says, does it put them back through, or do they have to choose to go back? I'm assuming that has to do with like trying to get better scores on their
Yes.
assignment.
Okay, yeah, so there's really no restriction from the standpoint that, let's say I'm a student and I did lesson 6 and I got a 80% and I think I can do better. I can go back in and just start all over again. So it will just say reattempt, and then you can reattempt it really as many times as you'd like to. So we don't put any restrictions on the lessons because we want students to have the ability to do them as many times as they like. And we all know that, repetition is the mother of all skill.
Okay, let me just wait 1 second to make sure there's not any other questions that pop in.
Sure.
So it looks like we're good. And again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for this presentation. And just a reminder, if you could just take a few moments to fill out that survey for us at the end of the webinar, we would really appreciate it. Thank you so much and enjoy your day.